What is up, gamers? So, this is my deck profile for Victor during Springfest. So, if you didn't see on Twitter, I got top 8 at BSF Houston. I made a really long post on why, getting a top is important to me. So, if you want to check that out, go ahead and check Twitter. So yeah, basically, I really wanted this top because I actually haven't topped an event yet. I've been playing this game since 2012? 2011? I was 11 or 12 at the time whenever I started playing. And for me, playing this game as long as I have and not having a top yet, granted I didn't start competing in events till V Premium because I didn't have a way to get a job at that point. But yeah, I just really wanted a top to show oh, I'm actually decent at the game that I've been playing for 10 years. So yeah, first of all, couple shoutouts. So first, my teammates Asael and Jaden, they're very new to the game. They started doing D series, and we got them in the premium back in September, October, something like that. And ever since then, they've super enjoyed the game, and they were able to make this trip with me. So I got to compete in the event, and I've practiced a lot to learn this meta. So yeah, them coming in and they actually smurfed it a bit. They did pretty well for their first event. I'm super proud of them and really happy with the result they got. And then next, our friend Eric, none of us drive in the city, but he lived in Chicago for a while and he just came along for the ride to drive us. So shout outs to Eric, thank you my guy, getting us around town safely. Love ya. And then final shout out to Derek Dow. So you probably saw on Twitter if you follow me there, because I talked about it a lot. But I got coached by Derek Dow last Saturday. Basically the day after registration closed was when we had our session, and it was so helpful. Holy cow. That man is a fucking menace for tournaments. And then he goes off and gets second in standard and first in premium. Congrats to you, my guy. Love ya, and thank you for all the coaching you gave me. So anyway, all the shout outs done, all my background done. So let's just talk about the deck itself. So it is Victor. Novas I actually have never taken to an event, even though they're my favorite clan in the game, because I never felt like they were super strong in the meta. But with with how this meta has developed, with Order Colony being one of the best decks, then I thought Victor was set up to do very well into this format. So yeah, we will start with 4V Victor. He's so good. He's such a good ride. So basically you want to ride him, get the Excel marker, and then search for an Extreme Battler off your top 7. So you basically +1 off it, and it helps you search for specific pieces you want into specific matchups. So there's Gunsdawn in here who gives resist to your board. You really want resist in Denial Griffin matchups like Naokami. So yeah, and then the second skill is on attack, Counterblast, Soul Blast, standard unit. Well, standard rear guard, and if that rear guard has stood 2 more times that turn, then he gains triple drive. So you basically try to use this to farm hand as much as possible and be able to dig through your deck for more pieces you need. And it gives you a little bit better of an aggro turn. I don't run Zubat Battler in here because I felt like if I had to ride anything other than Victor, the V Victor, then I'm already far behind. Which the only reason you'd run Zubat right now is for the Order Colony matchup, but I think Novas already have a good enough matchup into it that you don't need the Zubat for it. But yeah, I just really want the hard +1 and digging into my deck that V Victor gives me. So that's why he's only grade 3 in here, other than Heal Guardians, of course. Next, V Starter. We just want to search for pieces, and the Quick Shield just helps. There's no other better starter you could run other than maybe Rumble. But since Rumble's an Extreme Battler, you could main deck it and have Victor search for it. So there's no point for that. Grade 2s, we run 4 Cool Hank, So, Cool Hank, I'm like half and half split on this card, because the restand ability can be handy at times, but playing Novas you already minus from hand, or playing Novas you don't really plus until you hit Busted, so having to discard to restand something is kind of bad. But his Vanguard skill is very, very useful. Because we are a piece reliant deck, we need to see our cards to be able to do our combos and keep a decently sized hand to be able to like keep up pressure throughout the game. So his Vanguard skill of on hit so less one draw, the soul cost does not matter in here. This deck is not made to get as many drive checks off Busted as possible. It's made to be able to work off of the situation and do some type of Busted, draw a bunch of cards, and then end on Driger or Faith Champ, or just through pure raw tempo. So Hank being able to get us an extra card during early game is so useful. I barely used his restand skill either. Like, I used it maybe 3 times throughout the whole event, but I used his on hit like 4 or 5 times because it's so useful. So yeah, Cool Hank, I just love Cool Hank right now because of me needing a hand for it. Next, for Golshachi. Golshachi's like half the reason you play Victor, because you get access to this grade 2. So if your Vanguard's Victor, he gains resist and on attack can less stand something. And then GB2 once per turn, whenever he stands, he gains 7k for this. So it becomes a 16k body. So Golshachi in the Narukami matchup is fucking huge. Like, against Vanquisher, you need Golshachi. If you have Golshachi in the front row and your Vanguard's Victor, then he has resist, Vanquisher can't play. It's so easy to like deal with Narukami because of this card, and a lot of other decks with Denial Griffin plays can't deal with him because he has the resist. And then only his power bonus is restricted to GB, so during your grade 3 turn, this deck is made to ride up to grade 3 because we can't grade 2 game worth a shit. So we want to be able to ride up to 3 still and be okay with it. So having Victor and Golshachi on your turn 3 can put a lot of pressure on the opponent to be able to force them to either guard or were able to pick off the field a bit. So yeah, Golshachi's just really nice. And then him converting into a beater later in the game is also really good. Because usually with this deck, if there's a damage trigger, then it's really hard to put decent pressure on the opponent. So Golshachi becoming a 16k beater, potentially higher later in the game, is very nice. And it lasts for grade 2s for Brutal Jack. So most people run Dose Ledge in this spot right now. I personally really like Jack because on grade 3 turn, let's say the opponent is wanting to take a lot of damage to be able to do their plays. What this combo can do, let's say we just have like a Golshachi in the back. So we do Jack's skill, vest these 2, and stand Jack. So then that counts as 1 stand. And then we swing with Jack, and then swing with Victor, and then Victor's skill to restand Jack. So then that becomes my second stand for the turn on Jack. So then Victor gains triple drive. And then depending on situation, if I'm wanting to put pressure on them or if not, then I can either attack or not attack with Jack and just leave it standing. So it lets me commit less resources to be able to get the triple drive, so I just naturally have a bigger hand. Also in the early game, if we're wanting to confirm damage on the opponent, we can ride Jack instead of Hank. And he will be base 19 going in, and like no one will ever guard that. So he's basically a guaranteed early hit. Dose Ledge is better in the later game scenarios where you're wanting to pop off with As the Bulk or Driger or Fave Champ, and potentially on Buster turns too, if you just keep restanding that one Dose Ledge. I just like Jack because he gives us more utility on being able to deal with how to navigate through turns, because Dose Ledge is very one-dimensional and it's very piece reliant. Jack is not very piece reliant. Next for grade 1s, we have 2 Gunsdon. So you rest him and give 5 of your rear guards resist. And then once per turn, whenever he stands, he gets 4k for each face-up G unit you have. Or face-up card in your G zone. So, you only run 2 because you only need them in specific matchups. Like Naokami, for example. Or Kagero, where they have easy Denial Griffin access. Because then you basically get to go through your turn uninterrupted. Like, the opponent can't do anything about it. The main thing you could worry about is Genesis and the grade 2 promo that makes you call from the top of the deck on a unit because it targets the circle, not the unit. But it's completely fine if they do that. This being able to stop very pesky matchups and let you keep your turn going is very huge. And then late game, he becomes a huge ass beater because typically you busted, flip up, and then you go into Drago or Fave Champ, and then you have a Gunsdawn in play that will just gain a shitload of power. And he just helps close out games a lot easier. So Gunsdawn at 2, you could potentially bump him up to 3 if you're really scared about Denial Griffin matchups, or if you just like how big of a beater he becomes. But then, in my experience, it like slows down the pace of your deck because he doesn't actually fulfill any combos for the deck. He just makes sure the combos happen. So yeah. Next, 3 Meleaki. So, Meleaki, this build was built to be able to do Azabulk or Busted, because in some matchups you want to do either or. So, Meleaki, being able to basically let you play through damage triggers is very huge. And this is where Jack comes in also, because with Jack, on like, I don't know, a Drago turn, you can do Jack skill, rest the 2, and then stand Jack, and then he already gets a Meleaki proc on it. Or if you have like another rearguard somewhere, you can keep the Meleaki boost. So, and then he keeps stacking. So if the unit in front of him has stood twice, then he does the red text effect twice. So, like, once you stood something like 3 or 4 times, you start making very absurd numbers that will just keep getting bigger and bigger throughout the turn. And since you're Nova Grappler, you will keep restanding your units non-stop. So yeah, Meleaki is very big in here. He won me 2 games, I think it was. Yeah, he won me 2 games in the event. I will probably like bump him down to 2 eventually, but for now I think 3 is very nice. Next, 3 G era Airshid. So I really like this Airshid because a lot of the times with V Airshid I actually like don't consistently hit my Victor ride, but with G Airshid, what he allows you to do basically is open with a heal guardian and not feel bad about it, because then Airshid will reveal the heal and then add Victor to hand. So, and then he's also Stride Fodder, so because we only run 4 grade 3s, and we want to keep riding Victor also, because he just keeps netting us advantage. So, Airshid being able to guarantee hit Victor is very huge on the consistency. The only thing that V Airshid has over this is it hits bigger, it has 5k more shield, and you can search heal guardians potentially. I just don't like how it can whiff, because I just want, if I don't hit Victor, then I lose, right? So this just has felt more consistent to me, personally. And then also in the Order Colony matchup, he's a lot better, because you need to keep having a grade 3 ride to be able to play the game, since they paralyze your Vanguard. You want to be able to keep re-riding grade 3s going into the Order Colony matchup, because if your Vanguard is fully paralyzed for 1 turn, then the game ends, basically. Which is where Zubat could potentially come in as like a better unit to have in here. But for now, I really like Airshid. Next, 3 Genbaru Gun. So, Genbaru Gun is interesting. At first, I thought he was like a terrible, terrible card. I was like, Soul Blast? You want to use that for Busted. But what Gun realistically allows you to do is gives you better access to run a beater like Jack in your deck, because you can put restanders. You can put restanders into your grade 1 slots that become front row attackers. And he also just hits bigger numbers than Gulsachi and Jack do. Unless you stand Gulsachi. Because he gains 5k for turn. So he becomes a 13k beater and hits everything in the format. Other than Dungary. And he just allows you to... He just allows you easy access to it. So now, with all that total, we have something that's on discard to restand. We have something that's Counterblast to restand. And now we have something that's Soul Blast to restand. So we basically have access to all different types of resources to restand our stuff. We're not locked into a specific thing. So if we have no Soul, we just play Counterblasters or Discarders. If we have no Counterblast, we play Soul Blasters and Discarders. If we have no hand, we play Counterblasters and Soul Blasters. So, just like a bunch of different ways to restand things where the opponent can't really like fully stop us from being able to restand unless if we just run out of cards. So, yeah, Gun is very huge. I really have been liking him a lot more recently. And then, last for grade 1's 3, Jailhog. He's just so good. Combined with Busted, he becomes a hard +1 for a Counterblast. And then he also gives you a second attack. So if you combine it with Gulsachi, then it will be a 16k attack into an 18k attack that also drew you a card and gave you an extra drive on Busted. And it's free. It's free for Busted to do it. Because you shove him to Soul and Busted Soul Blasts it back out. So yeah. Busted is very good with Jailhog because it just nets you more advantage into your hand. And now lastly, this is a weird card I put in that like no other Victor lists are running. I ran 3 Bikun. So a lot of my testing has come down to the big aggro decks, Overlord and Regalia, riding up to 3 first. And then they basically just either one-shot me or they annihilate my hand where I don't have any plays. And if we don't have cards, then we can't do plays in this deck. Because the only way we generate advantage is by actually playing our cards. And then using Busted to regain it all. So, Bikun allows us to go through those specific matchups a lot easier. And being able to, like, basically one-card guard a bunch of attacks is very handy. And then in other matchups where they don't really aggro you, so like Dolls or Granblue, they both have restanding Vanguards, or I guess multi-attacking Vanguards. So Bikun actually like comes up in those matchups too. So you can like one card guard Skull Dragons now. You can one card guard the huge ass Leslies they make. So yeah, Bikun was very good in testing. Just on the day of the event, I did not face any of those decks. I was in Seat A, and I went against a lot of weird shit. So, the Bikuns didn't actually come up on the event, but doing testing, it was very handy on being able to keep my hand afloat and stable in a really bad situation. Yeah. And then 4 triggers. Overtrigger. So, yeah, of course, Overtrigger, Busted, Bushiroad, ban this, please. Next, 4 Heal Guardians. So, yeah. So basically, Heal Guardians, they are just insane in here. And then since we're running G-Air Shid, we use them to search for Victor. They also become potential stride fodder, potential ride targets against Ghidorah. And they also help us keep our hand afloat into the later stages of the game. So yeah, 4 Heal Guardian, pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing too spicy about that. Next, 4 Draw PGs. Basically, we want to, again, keep our hand floating during the early game. Or deal with, like, over-trigger situations. Or deal with very high-powered, insane attacks. And it's also a draw trigger, which, again, helps us keep our hand. Because that's the most important part about playing this deck, is keeping a decent-sized hand at all times. So, between the 4 Heal Guardians, the 4 PGs, and the 3 Bikuns, we have 11 cards in here that help us make it through the early game without having to dump a bunch of hand. And be able to make up for all the 5k shields we have in the deck. Because there's only one V-era unit in the grade 1s that we run. So, yeah. The Draw PGs, Bikuns, Heal Guardians, yeah. All very self-explanatory. 4 Stride Fodder crits. we run 4 grade 3s in our deck that aren't heals. So having access to Stride is the most important thing in this format right now. So now with all of this, we have 4, 8, 11, 15 cards we can Stride with. And let's say we -1 for Victor because we have to ride it, right? So we have 14 other cards in our deck we can potentially Stride with. So we can very consistently get it off and handle good situation. And then last, the weird card I have in here, other than Beacon, is 3 Breakpass. So most of the time, this spot is filled with either Energy Gill, Kachiwal, or Magnagao. I decided with Breakpass. So my idea with this deck is because there's a lot of decks in the format that can grade 2 game very well. And Victor its grade 2 game is non-existent, basically. We only grade 2 game against decks that won't anyway, like Overlord or potentially Regalia. So we want to be fine with winning the die roll and going first. And Magnagao, even though it has better trigger numbers, we can't use it till we Stride. And I want to be able to use it earlier, and Breakpass is that answer. So when your Victor Vanguard swings, you put it from rearguard to soul, give your Vanguard +5, and you draw a card. So why is this good? So one of the big weaknesses with Victor is that he does not gain power on his own. You see it in V Premium where a bunch of decks are running Payon Mask, the elephant, because it makes Victor a base 22. You also typically put a V Airshid behind Victor, which we don't run. So that isn't a good option for us either. We lose out on that. So Breakpass makes up for that because it makes our Vanguard base 17, assuming we only have the 1. And one of the big plays I really liked with this deck is Victor, Jack, and Breakpass together. So what I like to do is I ride Victor, get the Excel marker, and then I search top 7, and then I call a Breakpass. Just anywhere. It doesn't matter where. And then the Breakpass becomes, instead of a +1 to field, a +1 to hand. Which, when you're thinking about Cool Hank and Favorite Champ, you want cards in hand to be able to discard. And being able to convert this into a card in hand is very handy. So you do Jack skill, rest the crit and Jack, and then restand Jack. Swing with Victor, restand Jack. Or you attack with Jack, then you swing with Victor, restand Jack, and then do Breakpass, shove it to soul, draw 1, give your Vanguard +5, and triple drive. So you basically just get a bunch of free cards into your hand through it. It also fuels soul earlier. So it basically refunds the cost that Victor would pay to Soul Blast to restand something by having this go into soul. And then we have other soul users with Cool Hank's on hit and Gambal Gun's attack. And then plus, you know, Busted. So yeah, this just keeping up with it is so nice. Like, I would not play this format without this card at all, in my opinion. I know a lot of people don't play this card, and like, I see why, because there's the more impactful number that Magnagao has, and it pushes the deck to a higher ceiling. Same thing with Energy Gill and Kachiwal. Because of the abilities, they push the deck to a higher ceiling. But we don't need a higher ceiling in this deck. We need more ways to restabilize and keep the game going in our favor. Being able to convert Breakpass into different pieces or give our Vanguard actual power to hit stuff without relying on hitting triggers is so important to me. So yeah, that is it for the main deck. For G-Zone, 1 Busted. I think the biggest mistake I made in deck building is not have 2 of him. There were a lot of situations where the game is like slowly deteriorating out of my favor because I didn't have the strongest Busted turn. So being able to like do it a second time to more guarantee get to Drago or Fave Champ is very big. So I wish I put in a second one of him and took out 1 Asdabulk. I had 2 in here. I originally had 1 Asdabulk as Orgorm, but I never went into it, so there was no point on that. A lot of my ideas at first was to rush people with Asdabulk through Meleaki and Jack and Golshachi restanding and shit like that. But through playing out matchups a little bit more, and after the session with Derek, I very much like, I knew how good Busted was, but I didn't like realize how often I should go into him. Because the entire clan's basically warped around this card right now, and I think I got a little bit lost in the sauce with Asdabulk and thinking that like every deck just outgrinds me and I have basically one turn to win the game, which is through Asdabulk. But it was actually like a lot easier to live through turns than I expected through Busted. I would have changed one Asdabulk for another Busted. That would be the real play. But it worked out in the end. Like, I strode Busted basically every game. There was one game I didn't because we didn't reach grade 3. And then Asdabulk, I strode into once, I think, because I didn't have the resources to do Fave Champ and I didn't have the GB to do Draga, so Asdabulk was just the better option, and I won off it, so turned out to be pretty good. One winning champ Victor. So I didn't go into him once because I didn't get a chance to. I didn't see any Honolys to have to deal with, and winning champ, you mainly play him for Honolly and because he's a Victor name. He's a Victor name that does the same thing Buster does, but just doesn't generate you advantage. He just gives you power on your board. So one of the big things in the Order Colony matchup you can do is to make up for the lack of Victors you run. Since you lose G-Guarding also, you just ride a Heal Guardian and then stride into winning champ. And then you can still do like all the shenanigans to be able to GB flip and have access to all your Victor skills. And in the process, you unparalyze your Vanguard. So having this in there for that really helps out on consistently beating Order Colony. One favorite champ Victor, he's one of the win cons in the deck. I strode him once against Jewel Knights, and I basically like annihilated him off this because I had enough to be able to do the restand rearguards effect twice and restand himself once. So, and I also had a Meleaki in play, so I was able to just like get a really massive turn off and just try to one-shot someone basically. And then one Draga, I didn't get to go into him, but he's basically the best finisher in the clan. So you always want to have him because you can accelerate to him with winning champ or Busted. And there's nothing else you would put in here. So yeah. 2 Meteor Kaiser Victor. I didn't use him once, but he's a 0 damage play and a Victor name, so you can also stride into it against Order Colony. And then 2 Victoplasma, also didn't go into it once. So basically for Link Joker matchup, or if you really don't have the resources to do anything, then he's probably your best option to do. Other than maybe Stark, but then you just lose afterwards. So yeah, Victoplasma is just a restanding Vanguard that filters your hand a bit, is the main thing. Then for G-Guards, one Unior, we just like having resources, and we eat up our resources a lot in this deck. We have a lot of cards that Soul Blast. We have Busted, which Soul Blasts everything. We have a lot of cards that Counter Blast through Jailhog and Gulshachi. And so being able to like recur those resources back very easily is huge. It's really nice to be able to deal with. 2 Doggon Titan. So Doggon Titan is our best like generic G-Guard because it reaches the highest shield easier. And since this deck is built to go first all the time, then we typically have a smaller board than the opponent would on their first stride turn, so this becomes a 25k shield doing that. And him having access to be able to unlock a counter charge during our turn is also very huge. One thing about Doggon too is in the Order Colony matchup, since we are locked out of G-Guarding anyway because of Ghidorah, whenever we use Busted, we flip up Doggon Titan. We flip him up, and then because of Ghidorah, all of our counter charging is set through our G-Guards, through Gundreed and Unior. But if we don't have either of those, then we lose all of our counter charging ability. So with Busted, you flip up Doggon Titan and give yourself access to potential counter charge. So yeah, Doggon Titan's just really good for that. 2 Gundreed, sometimes you don't have a good enough Buster turn to be able to go into Drago immediately right after. But if you have 2 G guards in hand, then you just guard with Gundreed and flip up. You guard with both Gundreeds and flip up 2 G unit, or 2 G guards, and then you just gain 4 GB right there. So then you can go into Fave Champ or Drago a lot easier. And then also the potential counter charge he gives. Basically, most of the time, if you guard with Gundreed, you will counter charge all of your damage. So yeah, Gundreed just giving you free resources and also being able to accelerate your GB is very huge. And then 1 Dismal, we like our rear guards, and sometimes we need specific ones to stay in play to be able to combo off next turn. So Dismal just helps protect them, and especially in the Narukami matchup, if you have Golshachi in play, they will attack that thing to death. So you just G-Guard into Dismal, protect the Golshachi, and then the turns just shut down. They can't do anything. So yeah, Dismal is very important in here, IMO, and that is it for the G-Zone. And then next, I will go over my matchups throughout the event. So round 1, we went against the Vanguard boys. They got 3rd in V Premium on the next day. So congrats to them. They're super cool people. One of them came by and was like talking to us on day 2, like hyping us up. So that was super cool. And yeah, so I went against Battle Sisters, and this was like my nerve game, I guess, because I fucked up super bad. Because I was super scared of like Momo Calico. And so I went first, I rode up to 2, and then they grade 2, they like hit me super hard on grade 2 and like basically tried to kill me and pushed me to like 3 or 4. And I didn't have Victor in hand, and in my mind I was like, if I G-assist and hit Victor, then they get to Stride first, and my hand is not nearly good enough to deal with a Momo turn. So I didn't even attempt to G-assist, I just kind of swung. I just swung with Hank once and passed. And then on his next turn, he did the grade 1 that's adds 10k power to whatever trigger you use. And then he stacked his deck to where he hit another crit again and just killed me. So yeah, I fucked up super bad that game, but it also just seemed like a pretty rough time already. So I don't know if I did G-assist, if it would have mattered. But that game ended like within 5 minutes. And I was the most confident in my team going into this because my other 2 teammates, they're newer and it's their first big event. So I was like, oh god, oh fuck, I just got us to lose round 1. But then, and my teammates saw me like pick up my stuff like very early on. Like they hadn't hit grade 3 yet, and they're like, oh shit. And then our player B went against Blau, and the Blau player healed on 4 damage and went down to 3, and he basically he couldn't do the Blazar skill afterwards. So then his turn was just very weak, and then our player B was playing DP, and he just went into X Gallop with 4 face up, loyaled it, linked it, and then so it was at 3 crit. And the opponent PG'd it, and his first check was a heal guardian, so he broke the PG and just one-shot him. And I couldn't tell what happened in the last game, but our player C, Jaden, he was playing Order Colony and went against Dolls. And basically I couldn't tell what happened, but he was able to like clutch the win at the end. So my teammates got us the first win, and it like boosted their confidence so much. So like the rest of the day became a lot better to play through. So my round 2 was against Jewel Knights. The Jewel Knight player went first, and he decided to ride up. I don't know if his hand was like full of grade 3s, but he like didn't. His grade 2 turn was just ride Sybil and swing. So I think he like didn't have a good enough hand to even attempt a grade 2 game. So he just rode up to Salome and swung and passed. And then on my Buster turn, I swung super hard on him. And during the process, he G-guarded, and I like pressured his hand a lot and pushed him to like 4 or 5 damage. Yeah, I pushed him to 4 damage. So then on his next turn, he was able to have GB3 Crystal Luster on Salome. And I stayed at 1 damage throughout the entire game just for this turn, because he like never tried to pressure me early. So during his Salome turn, I hit 3 damage triggers and was set at 42k base, and none of his attacks could hit, but I also had like a fat hand that was able to guard his attacks anyway. So then on my next turn, I just fave champed and with a melee Aki, and I just swung for game, and I killed him with it, since I restood my board twice, basically. So yeah, and then a player B won and player C lost, I think? Yeah, player B played against Shirayuki and won, and a player C lost in the mirror. Just kind of happens. And then round three, I went against the Luard player that won BRO Europe in Premium. He might have been playing the same list, I couldn't tell, but I went against him, and he got first stride on me, and I kept him at 1 face-up damage, and he didn't hit the Dagda, so he basically just like farmed a bunch and got to Ritual 10 and swung 3 times past. And then at that point, I had a decently sized hand, and I basically went into Busted and swung a shitload of times, and he didn't hit a damage trigger off his first 2 damage, so he went to 4. And then on my Busted turn, I was at 8 drives, and I hit OT crit heal, and I was able to basically pressure his hand a bunch, and I set him back. Yeah, I basically restood Busted also, and then he had triple drive still, and I double healed, so I went down to 2, and he went to 5, and basically had to use his entire hand to live that turn. And then he just didn't have enough to get anything going on his next turn, and just died. So yeah, so I won that round. A middle player went against Gridora and won, and then our last player went against Ezel, and the Ezel player like missed the high roll super hard or something, I don't know, but he lost too. Or my team won off that, so we had a 3-0 win that round, so woo! And then round 4, it was a team loss, but I won my matchup. It was against Order Colony. This was the wackiest fucking game. This is the wackiest game I played. So basically, I went first. I rode up to 3 first, because I can't grade 2 game worth of shit. And then I had Jack on the Excel Circle and Golshachi on the rear, and then Victor. So I went Jack, Golshachi, stand Jack, swing Victor, stand Jack. And my opponent was at 2 damage at this point on my Victor swing, and I had triple drive. So he also won to pass me for a V trigger. So what happened was I checked blank crit, but it was Breakpass, so I gave all the effects to Jack, and then OT, which I ended up giving all effects to Jack, but my Vanguard became 24k and was able to hit anyway with 2 crit. So my opponent checks, he was at 2 damage, and I'm at 2 damage at this point. He checks heal, so he took no damage basically off that. And then I swung with my 200 million 4 crit Jack, and he didn't have a PG in hand, so he checked blank blank OT blank, so he lived at 5 damage after taking 6 damage that turn. And then it was like a very back and forth game afterwards, because he was able to restabilize through drawing 80 cards through Book and Ruination. And then I was able to get the win off right afterwards. So yeah, that was a very rough game for him. And then my middle player went against Dolls and lost, because Dust annihilates Dieliner, so yeah, it really sucks for him. And then our last player went against Gurgurit, and my player like forgot to use Gridor. He forgot to stride, so he like drew a bunch of cards off Persona Ride, and then he like called down a board basically, and then was like, oh shit, I forgot to stride. Which his opponent wouldn't let him take it back, which that's fine, that's pretty normal, like that's a pretty big blunder. So yeah, and then he just died to Gurgrit the next turn. So, yeah, that was an unfortunate loss, but it's fine. We were 3-0 at that point, so we went to 3-1. And then our next round, I went against Dungaree, and man, Dungaree was like, I didn't feel threatened at all. The guy couldn't play because I had Golshachi in play, and he didn't know what my cards did, and he like read Golshachi and was like, that's a problem. And I was able to just like easily play through Stunverse and be able to just like keep up pressure throughout the game, and he couldn't deal with my Golshachis at all. So I was able to take that. Our middle player went against Jewel Knights and lost, and our last player went against the Mira again, and lost. So, but our round 4 opponents won their game. So we went 3-2, but our 2 losses were the 4-1 teams. So we came in 7th in top 8. And then our doing deck check. Yeah, doing deck check. I was sitting there waiting, and then TIE Fighter sits right next to me, and I'm just like, oh, what's up? And he goes, oh, hey. And we talked for a while, and he like basically instantly knew it was me, which was very cool. I really liked that. And he also topped with Victor, which he's making a deck profile on too. So between us, we got 2 Victor tops, and we did deck check together, and it was just super cool talking to him. I love that guy. He's exactly how he acts on stream in his videos. He's the same person. So yeah, we did deck check together. We survived the Elden Lord fight against deck check, and then we went into top 8, and we went against our round 4 opponents, where I was against Bugs again. And that game was super awkward because I damage checked 2 heals. He said at the start of the game, it's your turn to heal, and he rode up to 3 first, and then he critted me. He double critted me, and I went blank heal. So then he was just like, yep, it's your turn to heal. And then I rode Victor, and then I had to discard a heal to Stride. But then after that, I never saw another grade 3 because I went through 3 heals at that point and 1 Victor. So I had basically none left in my deck, and I was hoping to find one during my Buster drives, but I didn't end up seeing one. So I was paralyzed for 2 turns in a row and just died, which happens. I'm not too upset about it. I was just so excited about getting my first top that I didn't care if I lost then. A middle player went against Dolls again and lost. He was talking about him misplaying, but I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. And then our last player got his revenge on Gurgrit because he actually strode Gridora and used its skill. So, pog for him. But yeah, I went, if we count top cut, I went 4-2, and my teammates went 3-3. So, it was very good. I really enjoyed this event. And then V Premium, I just got ass blasted because I was fucking around with it because I don't care for the format too much. So I just played Beast Deities and tried to sack 1 person super hard, but I didn't get that luxury. I went 0-6. So yeah, very fun event. Again, shout out to my team. Shout out to Eric for being an amazing driver, an amazing chauffeur. And then shout out to Derek for all the coaching, all the help he gave me. He really opened my eyes on like how to play better and how to go through the motions easier. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Now that the season's over and I'm also starting to work less, I'll be able to try to upload more content. I already know I already have one video idea I really want to do. So yeah, thank you all for watching. See you all in the next one. Goodbye.